Thanks, Paul. And I must say that since last 10 to 12 years, we have been following the Western men's rights movement very closely. And a lot of guys in India are very young. The average age today of a men's rights activist is around 30 years. So we have a lot to learn. And so we have looked at different countries, and it really inspires us, gives us new ideas. And one of the big areas of our learning is the books, number of books that get published in West, and that has really helped us. So we are really inspired by the work done by Mike, Paul, Sage, Gerard, and now recently Milo. So we are really inspired, and we are repeating many of this stuff in India since quite some years. So that's how we have some successes. So that's what I would like to say before I start my presentation. And creating a center for leadership for young men's rights activists. So just hold on to this thought right now, and as I get to the presentation. So it's about the organizational models that make a difference or made a difference, and a few success stories. So here is how I will be going about it. The topics I will cover briefly are: is India a highly male-dominated country? Because this is a question often in the Western audience. They have a big conversation around, like, India is a patriarchal, male-dominated, conservative, traditional country, right? So that is what has to be addressed, even though I know many of you may already have got the answer. And the next thing I will touch upon is, why is it important country? Why this nation is important for the men's human rights movement in next decade, or maybe 2 or 3 decades. What's going to happen and how it can impact the future. And then, of course, the main topic, our experiments with various organizational models. So we did not just use one organization. It's a number of organizational models that we have experimented, and what did we find out of those models. It's a big topic, but I will just cover a few points. And finally, can we use some of these learnings in other countries? So I start by the first topic, that most people in the Western world believe that India is a very male-dominated country, but I will go through some of these slides, and you can see that the Delhi, which is announced as the rape capital of the world, is actually, it has a population of 18 million people, and the number of rape cases that are filed in the city of Delhi, as per the government, is 3,200 only. And according to the State Commission for Women, which is a government body, then 53.2% of cases, rape cases filed, are false, right? So this is the official government data, and if anybody has the courage, they can go and challenge it. Of course, yeah. So, but they will all claim that in India, in Delhi, every 2 days a woman is getting raped, or every day 3 women are getting raped. But of course, it's a number of 1,500 incidents of rape. So if you divide, 4 or 5 women are getting raped every day, right? So that's how the crime clocks work. And the crime clocks are such instruments used by journalists which are very biased against the big countries, right? The crime clock of a big country, India is a big country with a huge population, so it's more in bad news. It's as simple as that. And that may not happen to a Nordic country or Mexico or some other country like Maldives. With a small population, the crime clock will be going very slowly. Now, of course, refusing to marry your girlfriend is a rape.
Are those rape cases on men or women?
Okay, in India it is legal to rape men. Men can rape men and women can rape men. That's legal. I can explain later. So this is a judgment from a court. Like, man gets 10 years jail. The court has convicted a man because he refused to marry his girlfriend. So that is the language that they use, and this is misandry by the traditionalists. Of course, men are officially excluded from the laws of domestic violence, sexual harassment at workplace, and also rape. It's legal to rape a male above the age of 18. So the rapists in other countries can travel to India and they can rape and come back. I'm actually giving them a tip. Right. Now, we'll look at the gynocentrism, and this is an old story, 2,000-3,000 years old story, and you can see the religious festivals, what happens. This is what is the festival. And the goddess Kali, if you know, and it's her husband. This is what Indians worship. This is a governor of a state and a man. And the finance minister of the state is doing this to the female governor. The country itself is a woman. So this is the whole situation that we have in India, right? So I will not go more into details, but everywhere, every symbol is like this since a long time. It's even before the feminists really started their own experiments. This is the state, even in a traditional manner. Now, I will quickly get into this topic, that why India is very important in men's human rights movement. And this is a very critical thing here to understand. So for that, first we have to understand the location of this country, where it is, and many people in West, maybe in the United States or Canada, don't know where it is. And so some people say, oh, this is so close to Afghanistan. I never knew that. So let's see. So the location of the country is here, okay? But the problem is this map is wrong. And if you go to Google, the map is wrong actually. If you see that this is Greenland, it's almost as big as Africa. Okay? Okay, this is what we see every day. This is a Mercator map, and this is actually wrong. And you see Australia is so small here, and Greenland is bigger than Australia. Okay. So this is something we all are used to now, but actually this is not true. Okay. So when you think about India, you may be thinking it's a small country with a huge population, but that's not really true. The actual stuff is you need to know what is actually India that way. So this is what India is actually. So you see Germany, one state. One state is Romania, and these two states are Italy, Poland, Spain and Portugal, these three states, and Netherlands and Luxembourg and France, Hungary, Czech Republic and Croatia, Belgium and all. Actually, India is 75% the size of European Union. European Union is like 4.3 million square kilometers. India is 3.3 million square kilometers of area. So it's like 75% of European Union. It's a continent of its own in that way. Okay, so it's a huge place. Geographically. So if you are planning to travel to India, you should never plan to go all around. You should only go to one part of it, right? So it's a huge country, and of course, the other part is the population. So this is how the population is represented. If we allocate the area according to the population, if you see how big is this country here compared to other ones, and actually the population of India is like same as the entire population of Europe, including the Russian part and the North American population. So you have got that's the population of this country. So when these people get on board the men's human rights movement, this is the kind of population, if they get into the men's human rights movement, that's like a huge impact in the global world, in the future, next couple of decades. That's the population we are targeting. Now, of course, you can say that India is a poor country and it may not matter, but that's not really what's going to happen. This is the kind of internet penetration and the social media usage that is predicted. So if you can see, in 2017, 500 million people will be in the social media. 500 million people we are getting. So if there is Facebook and Reddit and everything in every language, and this the 500 million is the targeted population which we can address through the men's rights movement. So if you are organizing International Men's Day, right? So this is the target population which will get on board across the world. right? 500 million people out of 7 billion. So we are getting into that critical mass of people. And in internet, it doesn't matter which country or which nationality you belong to, right? So that's how the impact happens, and we are getting into that kind of a big percentage of population here. So that's why India is very critical, and whatever we do, we guys and we all together, we get involved, it can have a big impact. And if you see right now, we have the men's human rights movement has a presence all over the country. May not be in this part, but all over the country we have the presence. And I think similar thing is happening right now in Europe. And I wish it will all be similar in next couple of years. And so I come now to the main topic of our experiments with the various organizational models in India. Actually, we follow some very simple techniques, apart from using online social media to recruit people. Social media is a very good place to get the people on board into newsletters or get the contacts or create groups. So social media is helpful and internet is helpful in recruiting the guys on board. But that's only a small part of the story. But the actual thing that we do is, of course, we started with 60 guys in 2004, and we started in a Yahoo group in internet. It's only 60 people. So 60, in this room we had like 150 people. So only 60 people, and they don't know each other by face. So they are only in a small Yahoo group, small group. That's where it began. And so we used some methods since those days for rapid growth of the movement all over the country. So one of the primary things where our focus was to build the communities in different cities, so that we have meetups, so men must meet each other. Now, it's not just that you call everybody and some people turn up at a pub or a bar or a park. It's not like that. Actually, it's much more like a religious stuff. People who are religious, they go to a church. They go to, on a Sunday morning, they will be at a church, and they will go every Sunday, more or less, often. So that's how a meetup works. If you are part of the community, you are supposed to attend the meetup as much as possible. So that is where our focus is, and we will ensure that the guys attend and they get value out of the meetup. So that means they share their problems, and somehow they are getting some value, they are getting some solutions, or at least they are feeling good about themselves in the community. Because most men, when they face a problem, they get into a cave. They stop talking to anybody, right? That's the major fundamental pattern. Or they come to the meetup for the first time, the guy comes in and then he meets me in a corner. Can I have a word with you in a corner? That's what he will say, right? So having a strong community and having a strong network, that is where our primary focus is. And that's where we invest a lot of our minds and thoughts there. Of course, we get some guys with degrees in management or have an MBA degree, management degrees, who may be working in a corporate as a manager or senior level guy. So these guys give us some tips for branding and for people management, other techniques, because this is a formal science, formal methodologies, right? So we can bring in some of those stuff into the movement, into the communities, into the organization. And that helps us put some processes in place and learn. If we make a mistake, how do we learn so that we don't make the mistake again? So we have different levels of process and maturity. So we can measure how mature are we in different dimensions of the organization. Like if there is attrition, how are we managing it? Or if there is a protest, how effective we are. So we are constantly measuring our effectiveness with the past. So we, of course, have a team which always looks into ourselves. So this entire thing, what I'm presenting right now, is about ourselves. It's not about feminists and outer world. Our focus is now going inwards, right? And of course, we have to implement a very strong value system inside, and not just for the organizational well-being and to deal with the interpersonal issues, but also a strong value system is important for the well-being of the members, because most guys who come to us are damaged some way, right? This is happening to everybody. It's the same. So they are emotionally damaged, they have a marital problem, or they have a false case, they are victims of domestic violence, or they are victims of false allegations in workplace, or they got fired because of whatever problems. Now, all these guys often come to us after a while. They don't come before the problem, right? So having a strong value system, which we work to the community, that helps men remain stronger and go inwards. And I will go more in detail later about it. Like, we actually bring a lot of life coaching into it. We don't do counseling, but we bring in certain amount of coaching to the person. So the person can be allocated a coach, and the coach works with him over a period of couple of months to deal with his emotional issues, not only his court cases and family issues, but also his relationships with his parents and siblings and job and money, all aspects of life. It's like complete thing packed together in a small men's community. And often that has proved to be very powerful for people, because people, once they came into the system, and after a couple of years, they are completely different guys with different confidence levels and leadership levels, and that has really impacted their professional careers as well. Of course, to run a complicated system with all those things, we need a think tank. A couple of people have to be completely allocated. They won't be doing any activism or anything outside, but they will be only focusing on looking into these parameters and the internals of the whole system. That's what is needed, and I will go into more detail later. So now I'll get to a weekend meetup in a small place, which we had actually rented these community centers, and every weekend these guys meet. Yeah, every weekend these guys meet, and they discuss about their life, and you can see they are all happy. Each of these guys may have gone to prison, or he may have faced domestic violence, or he may be facing multiple court cases for a couple of years. But you see, none of those guys look sad. That's the whole shift that we have done, of course, using various techniques of life coaching, which we have picked up from here, there, and worked on ourselves. So, of course, this is the community from Delhi. The previous one was from South India, but this is from Delhi. So they have gone for a retreat somewhere into the hills near Himalayas. So they are there, and this is a protest in Bangalore. It's a hunger strike for fathers' rights. And so having a strong community means we have strong protests. This is a protest in Delhi in 2012, and actually we used this protest to roll back the no-fault divorce law. This is a fathers' rights protest in Bangalore. So you will find a lot of these pictures if you search in internet. Well, the whole point is, like, our focus is on building the communities and the organization. Our focus is not on activism or anything else. So the whole context is that if we are focusing on creating the strong community and the organizations, the activism and everything else will follow. It automatically happens. But normally people go the other way around. Everybody is focused on activism, and very few will focus on the community, because there's not much glamour out there. Activism is fun. That's how people feel, and that's how this entire thing becomes unstable, and then it closes down in a year or two. Of course, we started from Bangalore, and then it spread in a couple of years all over the country. So this is what I'm saying, like, the internet activism is good, very important, but that's very different from the ground campaigns. Like, for example, right now here, we are like 150, 200 people in this hall, and we have a certain experiences last 2 days. And these experiences are very different from being part of a Facebook group with 200 people. That is a different kind of an experience, right? This is like, here meeting is like we being on the court and experiencing the whole game. So there has to be a balance between the both, and of course the values. When we coach the guys, we bring in a lot of acceptance. Irrespective of any circumstance, you should be able to accept. So you should be happy to go into a prison happily. And that's what guys do. If they don't get a bail, they go into the prison very happily. They laugh and go inside. They come out laughing. Of course, being very peaceful, so that is all is the part of the coaching. And of course, when you are an activist, many activists often are not patient. They want to do everything today. So if there's a good protest today, next month they will organize one more, and by a couple of months, 2-3 months, there's only 2 guys protesting. Okay, so that's the whole problem. And of course, keeping very low expectation from the system, from ourselves. It's very important. Otherwise, people will soon start blaming each other and keep fighting with each other, and all that stuff happens. So the key, of course, after the life coaching, the major part is that we mentor the leadership, people who have the potential to be a leader, or people who choose to go into the leadership stream. They are trained in every aspect of activism. They are trained in coaching, they are trained to become future coaches, they are trained to organize protests, they are trained to interact with media, they are trained to write articles. So they are trained in different areas, and typically all those guys who are leaders having different organizations in India, on an average they were trained for 3 to 4 years. They get training and coaching over phone or in person. Sometimes they come and stay, they get trained in this kind of a school, like in that way. So one of the ways we did, we expanded all over the country. One of the ways that we used is to make it very easy to become a leader. So the leadership threshold was lowered, so anybody can become a leader if he chooses to be. And then provided the person is ready to take coaching. So over a period of time, it's anybody, he is just interested, he is not experienced. So we basically offered a lot of leadership positions almost freely. And then the people showed up as leaders. So they were not like real strong leaders, but as they were given the responsibility and pushed into the swimming pool, they started learning. And with some amount of coaching, they could be strong there. And of course, the mentoring for the new leaders. Now here is the problem. Yeah, thank you. So here is the problem about the organizational structures, as Thomas Walter was talking about, that who has got the longest. So of course, that's a big part of the whole problem that comes in, who has got the longest one. And men, the way they are, they will be fighting with each other. Now the question is, should we have a hierarchy like this? The organization should have a hierarchy like this, or it should have something else. We experimented with the hierarchy in the beginning. In 2004 and 5, there was a big, nasty fight. Almost they went to the local judge and called the local judge to mediate, who was sympathetic to us, and he was mediating, right? So it was very bad, and this happens across all cultures. Now the other way is no hierarchy. You are totally flat, but with a moderator or some kind of a facilitator doing this. So this works well in internet and other kind of meetups. So we actually moved to this kind of a system, and it was very tricky. I will take a long time to explain if I go into that, but that is how the Save Indian Family Foundation was created, actually. It's not one organization, but it's an umbrella of many organizations with a website and strong values. So this is how a massive umbrella is created with multiple hierarchies and communities across different parts of the country. So they are independent, they are like different local startups doing their own things, but then they have a strong internal network. And in a way, I can see right now AVFM emerging like that at a global level in some way. So that's what is happening, because people are from different organizations across the world. But the basic difference is we had a training process in the back. So the DNA is the same. Across all these organizations in different cities, 20 cities, the DNA is the same. It's not like they have a different value system. It's not so. And some of the methods that we used, I have only 2 or 3 slides. So playing a highly defensive game, we actually are very defensive when we communicate, when we interact with the system or feminists or in media. So that makes us take a kind of a center-left position. We never actually take a conservative position in India. And our name, the Save Indian Family Foundation, is basically an accident. It's a very conservative sounding name, but actually we are men's rights activists with slightly a liberal inclination. And of course, we focus on very, very few issues. We don't go all over the place because we do not have resources. And we only focused on creating one or two strong memes, like say the misuse. The misuse of laws is so strong that it echoes in parliament every now and then. And here is what we do. We actually wait for the right opportunity to strike. So activism is not our focus, but when we see a right opportunity, everybody goes and attacks in the media and then comes back. So we actually spend our resources very wisely. And we are, of course, have patience for a very long, drawn battle. So the entire movement is like a machine with multiple moving parts. And so that's where the whole complications come, because it's an umbrella with many groups working on many things and many organizations working. And then how do you coordinate? Because they may go fly off in different directions. So that's where the think tank comes into play. Like the people who are highly trustworthy, they would be looking into these different issues and the directions and all, so that they are like the main control system sitting in the middle. Of course, some successes of MRM, I will not go much into details, but yeah, the successes are like, of course, we had a conference recently where we got a professor from India's #1 law school, India's #1 mental health institute, to address us. And no feminist turned up, actually. And we got that into place. We rolled back the India's no-fault divorce law. And our MRAs are often in prime TV channels, any TV channel, the CNN's Indian equivalent, CNN 18. MRAs are often called there for TV debates on gender issues. Of course, there is a bias. The anchor may be biased, but it's possible that out of 5 participants, 2 are MRAs. It's possible. So often we got a lot of influence in the media. And the thing is, one of the political party, the liberal political party, which ruled us for 10 years, from 2004 till 2014, actually lost very badly. It's finished almost in a parliament of 550 seats. Currently, it has got only 44. So it's finished, and that's the party which ruled India for 60 or 70 years. So that party has got reduced to only 44 seats, less than 10% of the seats. That has happened because of all these affirmative actions and left-wing politics and all that stuff. And a few more successes are like, okay, our guys protested outside parliament and got arrested a couple of times. We got a misuse clause built into our sexual harassment law. So the sexual harassment at workplace law is not gender neutral, it's only for women, but we have got a misuse clause built into it through our lobbying. So that's like something very unique. And recently the Indian women's minister, just like in other countries you have a women's minister, and our MRS fought in Facebook. She was in Facebook saying that, ask me questions, and there was a fight. Okay, so I complete my presentation. I will take a couple of questions, and we have how much time? Thank you.
Hi.
Yes.
Having set up your own fathers groups, they tend to come, take what they want, and then you never see them again. How do you ensure that people stay and continue with the activism?
You mean the fathers who lose access to their children, right?
Yes.
And so for them, okay, in India they never get access, right? So the fathers are the people who suffer most in India, and often we do not have any solution for them. So they are not among our strong activists. We don't count them. Means we are okay, we are sympathetic to them, but we don't have huge expectations from fathers because they don't meet the children and they can't go to the school, and that's a big problem. But But let me put it this way, that we also feel that it is a low-hanging fruit. The father's rights is where we will get the next victory, big victory. So we are working on that. Often I tell to fathers, like, okay, you have not seen your kid for 6 months, so consider about a soldier in some Himalayas. The Indian soldiers often go there and fight or stay, and they don't see their kids for 6 months. They don't see it. And just see in that context that you are a soldier making a sacrifice for the nation or whatever the circumstances are. But it's relatively difficult to coach fathers.
Anil, you mentioned the allegation of India being a male-dominated country.
Right.
Are there any differences between the big cities and the more rural areas?
I will say no. I will say the answer is no, because the women in rural areas are mainly agrarian, the farms, and in the agricultural fields, the women work. Okay, so women have economic empowerment in rural areas. Okay, and then the government has all these subsidy programs where you have a minimum wage and you are guaranteed a minimum wage. So I have seen poor women being very, very independent economically. They don't have to seek a job, they just go and work. And so it's, but actually most Indians, if you ask, they'll say, okay, big cities, it's all feminism, and in rural areas, women really suffer. That's not as simple as that.
Yes. Finally now, after 2 days here, I feel like we have found the answer. Several speakers have told about the description of everything in a few years, but please, be leader of the world. We need your organization, Chief.
Thank you. Actually, Paul often tells me when I go to United States, he says that you should not return back. You stay in United States. Paul says that. Well, it's not about me. We can always teach the processes about what learnings we have, because I have not learned these things overnight. I have spent every day 4 hours or so for 10 years or 12 years. So that's the amount of time I can slowly teach for everybody, and over a period of time, it's possible.
Hello, and thank you again for all of the absolutely outstanding work you've been doing. I'm super impressed with just covering the country and your organization. I did want to ask, when you were talking about recruiting via social media, was your focus on recruitment more through contacting individual men one at a time, or focusing on those memes? Which was more effective in increasing turnover and increasing volunteers?
Okay, yes, this is a very, very interesting question. I'm talking about 2004, when we were only 60 people. So here is what we did. In those days, Facebook, by the way, Facebook is not good to recruit. It's not easy. We basically, a lot of techies, we went and we had all the Google, they basically found out all the Google techniques into search engine. So you write small blogs and ensure that all these blogs come into the search engine. And in those days, Google blog search is the one where you can get indexed very fast. So most of these guys, see, they did everything. They wrote all kinds of hidden texts with the same font, all tech stuff, so that the people who are searching in internet with something like men's helpline, harassed husbands, victim, and dowry loss or domestic violence, I need help, all these keywords, it's all keywords. So, and then we give them the numbers. This is the number. So we have the helplines, right? So these are the numbers. And once the media came into picture, so we ensured that the media publishes our helpline numbers. So the helpline is the key, right? Once the media has published, for example, in a city in eastern India, we did a press conference. We had some influence. Next day, we got 10 newspaper articles across 2 states, huge states, and then we got 120 phone calls within a couple of hours. And we conducted a meeting. We got 30 people out of that 120 in the next few days. And out of those 30, we found 4 leaders. And we coached them. And In 6 months' time, these guys did a conference like this in that city with the city former mayor coming in, was a speaker, and the vice chancellor of the local university is the dean of the university, law university was. So that's how we went, recruiting people. And even today, it's the helplines. People search for helplines, and they come and they subscribe.
Hello.
Yes.
The TEDx talk, The Forgotten Gender, by I'm pronouncing it terribly. Deepika
Bhardwaj.
Yeah, that really shocked me, like, because of all the stuff you just never hear. It's just how whole families can be, even children, can be accused of domestic violence.
Yes,
and
but yeah, true. Yeah, actually, we stopped all that. So nowadays they don't arrest families, children. They don't. We have given a kick like anything. Like, the local governor got panicked. The state governor of my state, he panicked. He held the Women's Commission accountable, and the Women's Commission called us. Please help us. We said, well, thank you for calling us, but we appreciate you do anything. You deal with the governor. See, we really did damage a lot, so they have stopped arresting anybody. And by the way, Supreme Court calls this legal terrorism. The Indian Supreme Court called this legal terrorism. And India's president and prime... By the way, US government had a travel warning. If you are an American citizen of Indian origin planning to marry an Indian woman, be careful. Your passport can be taken away, you can be trapped. Or if you are dating, you're an American and you are dating an Indian woman and you plan to go to India and get married, be careful. You can get trapped like that. And you are an American citizen, doesn't matter. You are there for 7 years. The State Department had issued travel warnings. And the Interpol said, we will not touch this law.
A travel warning for marriage, I like it.
Thank you. Network for Men is hoping to do something similar.
Right.
So I'd really like to learn, on behalf of the network, I'd like to learn from you. Maybe 1 or 2 top tips as well, in addition to what you've said, and also some way that we can collaborate and work together.
Yes, I already said that, like, one has to be very patient, and you should be happy if there is a fight. That's what we were discussing about Thomas Walter. He's saying everybody is getting scattered and there is a fight. Actually, we are happy about Germany. Something is going to happen. Yeah, so you should not... I was talking to him yesterday, so you should be happy. Whenever there is a fight, it's good, actually. Something will come up. That's why there is a fight. It's like childbirth, there's a pain and then the child is born, so like that.
Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for questions for Anil. What an excellent presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, Anil Kumar.
Thank you.